I think in the next probably 5 years, you're going to see a whole lot more people that are in the C-suite that are going to consume a lot of their marketing content with these phones. It will be video, and it will be authentic voices in video.
Scott McCollum is a director of product marketing at Blue Mantis, where he leverages over 20 years of experience to craft compelling messaging and a competitive positioning for cloud, cybersecurity, and digital transformation solutions.
What I hate is the video that is overproduced, and it's got, all of this stuff that, that's either got a green screen or a black background with a very starkly lit person. I hate that stuff. You are not selling to a business. You're not selling to a corporation. You're selling to a person at that corporation who is making a buying decision. Hopefully is making a buying decision based on logic and reason. A whole lot of people now are much more focused on YouTube, on demand, talking directly to them about the things that they want to hear. And if you as a marketer are not in on that, and you're not thinking about that and trying to plan for it, you're going to get left behind.
Welcome to the Cyberwhyze BrandGen Podcast, where we have in-depth conversations with business leaders in cybersecurity and B2B tech, where we talk about growing your brand and creating demand for your cybersecurity business. I'm Milano, and today on the podcast, we have a highly knowledgeable and multifaceted guest joining us. Today, we're honored to be joined by a strategic mastermind and an innovator, and a voiceover actor in the cybersecurity space, Scott McCollum. Scott McCollum is a director of product marketing at Blue Mantis, where he leverages over 20 years of experience, even though he doesn't look much older than that, to craft compelling messaging and a competitive positioning for cloud, cybersecurity, and digital transformation solutions. His expertise extends from his tenure at Comcast Business and Masergy before his current position here at Blue Mantis. Join us as we dive into his extensive knowledge and explore the critical intersections of cybersecurity, innovation, and leadership with Scott McCollum. Please welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Thank you,
Scott,
sir. It's nice to be
being
here
on today. It's good catching up too, because we've run into each other in the past, haven't we?
Yes. When I was at Masergy before they got bought by Comcast, we worked together, and it was always an excellent experience.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think that was pre-pandemic. When we worked together during the pandemic, I think it was you helping with some voiceover acting, which I don't know if anybody knows that part of your background, but they could probably pick up on that through the conversation today in the podcast.
Yeah, I haven't done much of that since joining Blue Mantis. I did some of that at Masergy before they got bought by Comcast Business. And also for Microsoft, I did work a few years, almost 10 years at Microsoft at their Redmond campus. So I do have should I even admit to this? I was a teenage actor. I wasn't in anything that was that popular, mainly because I was 6 feet tall. When you're 16, 17 years old, that, Tom Cruise is like 5'4". Sorry, ladies, if you didn't know that. So I towered over the guy when I was on a movie set with him. So, you don't get work as a 16-year-old that's older than your 30-year-old lead man. So voice, though, no one can tell. So that's what I got into the voice for.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, why don't we start off by telling us a little bit more about your role at Blue Mantis today?
Blue Mantis is a managed service provider. We are an IT solutions provider that is very cybersecurity focused. Everything that we build, be it cloud or anything, is built with that zero trust framework in mind. So it's very cybersecurity focused. We mostly, we develop things that are across all different industry verticals, but we tend to do very well in the finance, manufacturing, retail, public sector, because those are all sectors that very much want to make sure that they have cybersecurity and are usually highly regulated, care about not only their customers' data, but employee data, data privacy, So that's something that we heavily concentrate on. I've been there for a couple of years now. We recently, maybe a year ago, we are coming up on the anniversary of that, rebranded from the previous name, which the company had for almost 30 years, been around a long time, was Green Pages. So we're now Blue Mantis, and I've been director of product marketing there now for a couple of years, working with them on their journey.
That's awesome. So what does the day-to-day look like for you at Blue Mantis? I'm sure there's initiatives, campaigns, and things that you're managing different teams.
Yes.
But for someone who doesn't have that experience on the product marketing side, so a lot of the people listening are on smaller teams and they haven't built out those departments yet. Tell us a little bit about it.
Blue Mantis is a company that is, like I said, it's a venerable company. It's been around 30 plus years, but we're still somewhat lean in our staff. So around 500 people total right now, I believe. And our team is small but mighty. So in terms of the product marketing, what I do on a day-to-day basis is interface with the engineers, with the practice managers. We think of our sort of lines of business as practices. We have a cloud practice. We have a cybersecurity and risk management practice. We have a carrier services practice, et cetera. So I'm talking to all of those people and the engineers that often will either report to them or are associated with their practices about the products that we're going to bring to market. So what I do then is figure out go-to-market strategies. I'm also coordinating with the managers of the demand generation side of the marketing with social media. These are all, kind of, I don't want to say separate because we all do integrate, and I'm kind of one of the people that helps integrate a lot of that stuff. And that's because I have to be the person that has a lot of at least surface level knowledge of all of our various products that we have. And by doing that, I'm able to then kind of help craft those go-to-market strategies, figure out, well, what do we need here? Do we need video? Do we need an ebook? Do we need a product sheet? Now, we're always going to have a product sheet. Some people call it a data sheet. Some people call it a one-pager, whatever you want to call it. But you always have to have that sort of product. What is it? It's an overview of what it is, why it's valuable to you, the customer, and why we're different than other competitors when it comes to that product. I also do a lot of the PowerPoint presentations that salespeople will use to pitch that. Some people call that a pitch deck. Some people call it a walking deck. Whatever you want to call it, it's that very brand. Yeah, and I'm the person that makes sure that everything is on brand. I am crazy about all of that stuff, and people hate me for it, I know. But I'm the person that also makes sure that the sales presentations are on brand, on message, and are quick, consumable. The last thing anybody wants to see is a salesperson getting up in front of people in a boardroom or wherever, and there are 15 bullet points on that presentation, and the salesperson is turning around and reading the bullet points off of each of the, it's like, hey man, I can read that. That's okay. Yeah. Why don't you just tell me about your product? So I'm very much the person that wants to make sure that these pitches are lean and mean and ready to go and giving somebody exactly what they need to know to be able to make the sale. A lot of what a product marketing manager would do is sales enablement. You are enabling the salesperson to be able to get in front of a prospect and sell your product.
Well, that's I think the role in itself is also one of the most challenging from what I've seen. What I'm hearing is you're having to talk with fairly technical teams that have not fully productized everything in some cases, whether it's cloud, cybersecurity, or risk. And then you have to kind of be the one that kind of refines it and simplifies it so that by the time you pass it off to the demand gen team, it could be effective, or by the time you pass it off to the sales team. And that, even for me as like a business owner, is one of the more challenging things. I see this cocktail of solutions you have to bring together, but to distill it down to something that someone can memorize, sometimes it's a tagline, sometimes you're branding a service. and positioning in a way so it's memorable, it's not easy. So I can imagine how that could get difficult at times. And what I'm particularly curious of is when you're interacting with like your demand gen teams, right? What is that like? You know, is it a fun experience? Is it sometimes challenging? What are the expectations of one another? Give us a little bit of, the down low on that.
I think the people that I work with across the board at Blue Mantis are great. And with Demand Gen, our kind of director of Demand Gen, she's great because she is very focused. She's very organized. And I think that it's something that you really need when you're talking about Demand Gen campaigns. You know, a campaign is a lot of work. And that's not something that I, as a, product marketing person, really have to create end to end. But that's something that Katie, that does all of our Demand Gen, does very well. She knows, okay, she'll come to me and say, Scott, what do you have? What are the for product X? Product X is going to come out when? It's going to come out on this date. Okay, by this date, let's work back. She's the one saying, let's work back because the campaign is going to contain these things. It's good. You've got these 3 pieces of content that I can use, but I need 2 more because I want to have something that maybe I didn't think of. Because, again, she's the Demand Gen person and she really understands how to get these kind of content pieces in front of people. So it's really a skill that I admire. I'm like, I don't want to say I can never do that, but it's something that it's a muscle that I think that a lot of people, they have to sort of flex and get better at it. And she's definitely someone that's gotten really good at it. So it's always great to work with her. And I think that if you're new in product marketing, you should kind of make friends with that person who is the Demand Gen, because the more they know about what you do and the more you can help them be better at their job, I think you'll see success a lot more often than not, because demand generation is a big part of marketing, right? You have to have that demand to be able to sell. And demand generation managers really understand all of the different venues that you can go into, be it email, be it video, like we're on right now, all of that. Like, they get it and they know where to get it in front of people, how to get it in front of people, and I think importantly, when to get it in front of people. Because cybersecurity, we know that October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, right? So if you're going to do a cybersecurity awareness campaign in July, why? It's like, well, that demand generation manager is going to have a good reason for why you're doing it in July. Maybe there's some big conference that's coming in July, so that's why they're going to. Yeah. They understand a lot of the things that you as a product marketer may not understand, because you're so focused on knowing about the product and trying to kind of translate the engineer speak into business speak and make it more palatable for the whoever you're selling to. A demand generation person can do that to a degree, but they're, again, much more focused on actually getting your content in front of somebody so that it can make the sale.
And that's probably a bullet point to add on to the profile, is you're a translator too, in addition to being a voiceover talent. You have to translate what the technical teams are doing. And it almost sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, you are a content marketer in a way as well. You have to have that content marketing background to be the product marketing director. Do you do a lot of content marketing today still, or do you have teams underneath you that are doing the actual content build?
At Masergy, I did a lot of that on my own. I do a lot of it on my own here at Blue Mantis as well. So things like blogs, a lot of times I'm working with the practice leads on their blogs, asking, well, what's coming? Well, when is it going to be available? And what do you think are the top 3 reasons why I almost kind of interview them? Why should I buy from you? Kind of, in a sense, gives them the kind of, oh, I hadn't thought of that before. And I think that's really what you're trying to do when you're writing a blog or you're doing some kind of content marketing with your product managers or your engineers. You want them to think about and put themselves in the buyer's shoes, because I think a lot of times, and I saw this especially at Masergy, is Masergy sold networking, cybersecurity, and unified communications. And it was on a platform that they had created, a global spanning network that was very advanced at the time it was built 20 years before. And that meant that the people that were behind that were brilliant. They were really good engineers. And sometimes they would just do things because they thought it was cool. And that's hard to sell sometimes.
Guilty of that.
Yeah. You're trying to tell a CEO or a CFO to spend all of this money on this feature. Why? Because the engineer thought it was cool. No, that is not a good answer. Do not use that if you're thinking about it. You have to be able to sort of sit down with that engineer and say, why is this cool? What's the benefit to a CFO, to an IT manager, to a VP of IT? You're essentially trying to figure out, as a product marketer, a lot of ways to say the same thing, which is, this product is going to make you either look better to your boss or make your job easier. Because I think when it comes right down to it, that's a lot of what drives people when you're wanting a solution for something, because you have a problem and you want the solution. I'm in the C-suite. The board is on my case about GRC or whatever, the data privacy. Oh, we got to do GDPR because we're going into your, something like that. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't have time to even think about this. Solution. Blue Mantis has a product for that, and the product is this. That's the kind of humanity that you have to be looking for. I don't want to say, I don't know if I've said this before, but Blue Mantis is very much sort of business to business. It is not it is B2B, it is B2C, it is not B2C. We are not selling to the end user consumer. We're very much selling towards other businesses. But you as a product marketer, and I think as a marketer in general, you should always be aware that you are not selling to a business. You're not selling to a corporation. You're selling to a person at that corporation who is making a buying decision, who hopefully is making a buying decision based on logic and reason and, what it will do for them. Again, like I have a problem and you're here to solve it with your product. That's the goal there. So that's why I'm very much one of those people that says, if you're going to do any kind of content, you need to be able to make sure that content is speaking to a person and is speaking to their wants and needs. I don't think it needs to be emotional. I think emotion-driven selling is the purview of B2C. I think, and I think an example of a company that's really good to that is T-Mobile, especially T-Mobile when T-Mobile was run by John Legere. Several years ago. He hasn't been there for a long time now, unfortunately. But when I was at Microsoft in Seattle, John Legere was the guy. He's wearing his leather jacket and his magenta T-Mobile T-shirt, and he's got his long hair, and But whenever you would see anything T-Mobile related, you knew that it was kind of that very emotional. People love T-Mobile. If they have T-Mobile, they really love T-Mobile. I think Apple is another example of that too, especially when it was Steve Jobs, that people love their iPhones. It's not they look at it like a suitor more than they do a
it's
product.
the Bible. It's the digital Bible for people now.
Yes.
For sure. You touched on a few things there, and I wish I had kind of jotted all of them down, but to kind of
Oh,
bring together.
sorry. I knew that.
No. You touched on two or three things that I think kind of come together that are part of like the greater mission that we are trying to kind of move forward, which is, yes, it's B2B, but it's also B2H. It's business to human. There's one, two, three, four, maybe potential people weighing in on a decision. If it's something that, an MSP is selling, an MDR, a SaaS solution, and some people who have the most power to make a buying decision for your cybersecurity solution may be the least technical. It could be someone on the board of a healthcare organization, a fintech company, a manufacturer, retail, like you're saying, the verticals, and they just want to know how some purchase could either make or break the valuation of their company, the stock price, having a ransomware attack, the effect that could have on their reputation. And they just want to get straight to the point. And that's why, going back like what you were saying with content, there's different, ways to kind of bait the hook to suit the fish. There's the ebook, you have the blog, but the buyers now, as you and I have talked about, are evolving. It's not just a boomer buyer. It's not just a Gen X buyer, right? Like, talk to me about some of the trends you're maybe starting to see, whether you're doing them at Mantis or other companies that are happening within content, where you can see this evolving in the future that other content marketers could kind of be thinking out in advance of.
I don't think you're ever going to get rid of web copy. I think that will be around for a long time. So now it may somewhat shift in that it will be more for a mobile device. I think that the most recent stats I've seen about consumption of web page copy, especially B2B, is that it's almost 60-40 still, maybe higher towards desktop. And when I say desktop, obviously I mean not a PC, but like a big screen. You're going to be at your desk looking at a screen that's big rather than a small mobile screen like a phone or a tablet. So web copy is important. But I think what's going to, especially as we get to be more mobile with these things, is video. That's one of the things that I've seen, you and your organization do really well there at Cyberwhyze, is be able to give these video. The video content is so important because it has to be authentic. And I think your company's really good at that. And I think that successful people in the space, in the cybersecurity space, will need to do what you're doing, which is make something that's very authentic. And it's something that looks good, because I think we've all seen bad videos, but it looks very authentic. And, what I hate is the video that is overproduced and it's got, all of this stuff that, that's either got a green screen or a black background with a very starkly lit person who's, sitting in their chair and they got a sport coat on and they're talking to the camera about something and they've been told to tent their hands. And I hate that stuff. And the thing is I think a lot of people hate that stuff, but I think it's also somewhat generational. I think there are, how shall we say this, a certain older cohort, let's say, that responds better to those kind of, unfortunately, overproduced videos, whereas a younger cohort will respond much better to that one-on-one talking into the camera sort of video. And you can say that that's because of TikTok or YouTube or whatever. But I think the key thing that marketers need to remember is that, again, just like you said, a lot of it's B2H. You are talking to a human, and not to be a jerk, but that older cohort is going to retire. I was going to say they're going to die. I don't want to be. That's
hopefully
McCullum.
They don't have to work until they die.
Yeah, hopefully they don't have to work to that, like me. No, but again, those people move out of those jobs, and they age out of those jobs a lot of times. That's why they're moving out of those jobs. So then you're going to get someone who's going to come up and take their place. So that, he's not pushing 60. He's got, 60 by the lapels and slapping it. I mean, like that guy is going to move out in a few years, and someone's going to come up underneath him, and she may be 34. Well, that's a millennial. So wait a minute. A millennial consumes content, and including B2B content, a lot differently than the 60-plus-year-old CISO. So
Totally.
you have to be able to be thinking about that and know where that's going. What's the quote? Go where the puck is headed, not where the puck is now.
Yep.
I think it's very important for product marketing people in general to know that video is coming. If it's not, I want to say that it is mainstream already, but I think it's at sort of, if you think of it as almost like a hype cycle, it's not at the apex of that, hype of it being mainstream. It's still kind of low down here, but it's going up, but it is mainstream. I think that's what's important for people to understand is that yes, you do need to have web copy. Yes, you can get some mileage out of ebooks and out of product sheets and things like that, because, you are always going to have an event or something like that that's going to be, as the kids say, IRL, where you're going to need something that you can hand to someone. But more often than not, I think in the next probably 5 years, you're going to see a whole lot more people that are in the C-suite that are going to consume a lot of their marketing content with these phones. And I don't mean in a mobile-friendly website sort of way. It will be video, and it will be authentic voices in video. Because again, if you think about it from I'll use the analogy here again that's somewhat generational. It's television versus YouTube. There are still people that are very used to linear television that want to watch their show. I gotta watch my shows. But a whole lot of people now are much more focused on YouTube, on demand, talking directly to them about the things that they want to hear. And if you as a marketer are not in on that, and you're not thinking about that and trying to plan for it, you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you covered a lot of really good points that I think we've used even in our own marketing and positioning to try to get people to see the light, right? I think the real brilliant people behind this are the people who own and manage this big social platform. So you think of, LinkedIn or X. Yes. What are they fine-tuning their platform to do to distribute content? And we're a mile deep in LinkedIn, and we know that dollar for dollar, when you go to boost an ebook versus boost or do a paid promotion of a video, it's almost 10x the reach you get with video because their algorithm is looking for viewership, engagements. People are more likely to like, comment, repost. So that's kind of where the puck is going. Right? The proverbial puck, and I've never played hockey, so I probably would just slip if I attempted to chase the puck. But that's why we were like,
you're in California. It doesn't have any ice there. What are you talking about?
No, not at all. We're the pickleball state. So that's all we do. We go where the pickleball's headed, right? And that's a real intense sport over here. But
that's funny.
Yeah, it's like, you can, I think I mentioned to you at one point, we spend maybe a couple $100 boosting each one of our videos so we could get more reach. And then you get dozens of hours of consumption from ICPs. So, thinking also in addition to demand gen, this is doing video right as a sales enablement effort, or doing any content right as a sales enablement effort. We have clients today that are doing videos on LinkedIn, and then their BDRs are getting an account-based impact report for everybody who's viewed this content. And then if they can kind of cross-reference that with their own CRM, they're like, oh, wow, we didn't realize these guys are still consuming our content. Let's reach out. So it kind of gets their ears perked up from even an outbound standpoint without being too pushy. because some people do
Yeah.
deserve to just watch video and learn. Shouldn't have a salesperson calling them.
Right.
But that said, I think there's a lot to say of what's going to happen in the future. I think the platforms will continue to optimize for more video distribution. And today it's really affordable. But as we know what Google cost per click has done to a lot of people's budgets, it's going to get expensive as time goes on. So it's better to get started earlier with kind of cementing your place with more organic video content today.
And that's an excellent point that I had not thought of, that if you kind of get in early, you'll be in that prime mover advantage for a lot of this, because
Absolutely.
you're right. It's going to be something where, Google's going to catch on, and they're going to start totally hammering you on those costs. So if you can kind of get in early, you may have not only that prime mover advantage, but you may get grandfathered in on some of these things, depending on how big your reach is. Let me ask you from the standpoint of someone who's very good at producing these videos. If you're marketing to a cybersecurity audience and you want to be authentic, but how hard is it, in your experience, to get someone that is very good about talking about cybersecurity things, subjects, who is not what's the nice way of saying this? Who's not a complete basket case?
Yeah. So you have about 4 different creators that we would typically like to have on video in an ideal scenario. If you could get a founder, great, right? For like our bigger clients like Lenovo, probably not going to get the CEO or founders of Lenovo. So we'll go and we'll try to get the head of a business unit, right? It could be a manager, director. We like to bring on sales leaders. We like to bring on product people. And then sometimes, not a basket case, but overly technical and too engineering focused, it would be the engineering minds. But the beauty of having those people on video, even if they can't be as emphatic and bombastic as the sales leader, they are talking to an audience of technical decision makers who are a part of the buying decision. So when the board says, hey, we need to get an anti-ransomware software embedded into our cyber stack, it's going to be the board weighing in, it's going to be a CISO weighing in, all the way down to a security analyst. And when you put your security analyst out to create video, they may sound a little more binary or monotone in how they talk, but the message will still get across. Their technical prowess will be heard. And what we do a good job of, I think, is we get really good at directing people. So sometimes we don't even tell them when the recording is happening per se. We're like, everything's recorded, but we're not going to burden you with knowing when we're actually going to produce this part. And we just go through Q&A. And what's interesting is after we then cut it down and produce it, they're like, how did you pull that content out of me? How did I do a hook? And usually it's like their closing statement's the hook. And then all of the other things they said beforehand were the buildup, right? So we have got a lot better in just taking the talent we're working with, and we could take a very engineering focused person. We could sometimes give them a script. And then we'll even do, I don't know if you've seen it, but NVIDIA Maxine technology has a whole eye correction. So if you don't own a teleprompter and you're looking at your monitor and then the screen's up there or the camera's down there, we could recorrect where your eyes are looking, which is really cool.
Really?
Yep. And we've done that with some pretty big enterprise companies who just felt more comfortable reading off a script, because you could probably bang out 10 videos in an hour if you're reading off a script. Versus if you're trying to memorize, God forbid, don't do that. Wes, our director, Wes, has seen me try to memorize videos, and it's not pretty. So to answer your question and kind of wrap that up, I think everyone deserves for their voice to be heard on video. It's just everyone needs to be kind of bold and brave enough to give it a shot, and then to have a really good production team that understands contextually what you're saying. We joked earlier, if you're saying, endpoint protection, and you have an editor that's overseas and they're like, endpoint, what is that? Is that like the finish line of a race? Or if you're like, if there's bad actors, in the mix, they're going to pull up Pauly Shore, you said, as maybe some of the B-roll. And we're like, no, that's not a bad actor in cyber.
Right.
So contextually, you want your production team to understand cyber. And that's why us being niched in particular makes it a lot easier, because we understand what to show. And you understand from an explainer video standpoint how important it is to marry what is being said with the B-roll and all the visual storytelling too, right?
Yes, I think it's an excellent point in the sense that if you're doing an explainer video that can probably be animated and has voiceover, you can very easily get someone that reads a script, and now you can apparently get AI, text to speech that will do this. Although it doesn't work very well on some things, especially technical names.
That was one of the last points I wanted to hit on with you, because AI is very fascinating, right?
And
it's making its way into our lives. You as a voiceover actor, right, probably never predicted this a decade ago, that there'd be AI that could get as far as it can get today. Same with us on the editing side. We're like, AI can attempt to edit some videos, and that's beautiful. I mean, if AI does all of that, then we focus more on distribution and strategy. There's, a few different approaches, but what is your thought in terms of like how AI has begun to kind of encroach on some of the creatives, whether it's voice, video producers, and what do you think it's still lacking to get it to actually even get close to replacing some of that?
I think it will eventually replace a whole lot of people's jobs. And I think people should be worried about that. But I think the people that should be and will be worried about that, if they're in any kind of way cognizant of what AI can do, are the people who are frankly low skill labor, that are just doing it because a company has budgeted this and thrown bodies at it because they don't understand what it is. What I like to tell people a lot of times is that if you're a quote-unquote creative, be it an actor, a singer, musician, painter, whatever, in a lot of ways you can just sort of do it. It's your God-given talent that you have, that you can do, the whatever 10,000 hours of practice or whatever to make yourself better at it. But in a lot of ways, you can just sort of do it. You're a singer, you can just hear these tones and you can replicate them. Why? Just because you can. But to someone who's not a singer, that seems like witchcraft. And they go, wow, oh, that's unbelievable. I could never do that. So I think a lot of times in a business standpoint, because a lot of times business people are not creatives. They may have creative hobbies. I don't know, they whittle or something like that. But a lot of times they're not creatives. They may think of something cool, but again, they're not sketching it and bringing it out there. So in that sense, they're not a creative in that sense. And where I'm going with this is that a lot of times those low skill sort of throwing a body at this problem, be it graphic design or video editing or voiceover talent or writing blogs, creating ebooks, whatever. Those people are going to get yeeted from their organization because the AI will do that as good as they're doing it, because they're not really that good at it. They're just okay at it. And the person who hired them, because they're not creative, went, wow, you're some kind of wizard, so we have to hire you. That's not going to fly for too much longer, because I think right now, the way that AI is, it's really pretty good. And it's just going to get better. And, this is not Moore's law where things get exponentially better every year because of the transistor size. But there's some sort of analog to that in the AI space, in that AI just gets better and better almost exponentially. So there will be just type this stuff in and it works. And maybe if it doesn't work 100%, what if it works 95%? I think right now, the text-to-speech, you use that as an example. Text-to-speech, 80%. That's still really pretty high. But when it gets to be 95%, people will just understand, as is an AI voice, so that's fine. Hey, look, sometimes people will hire a voiceover artist who doesn't say words right either. So a real human being can mispronounce words. But
Yeah.
guess what? You don't have to, if your human is SAG-AFTRA, they're going to want, residuals. The AI ain't going to want any residuals.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So like that's a big part of it too. So those people need to be scared, because I think that there are a whole lot of people that are writing ebooks or blogs or doing, these kind of creative things that are going to get, unfortunately, supplanted by good enough AI. So my advice to those marketeers that are thinking of using AI and or are worried about AI taking their job, you should be looking at how AI can augment your job right now. I think one example of that is if you're a content marketer who is writing blogs for you're writing the corporate blogs. You should be asking the AI, like whatever the GPT is now, the 4.0 or whatever. Tell me ways that I can improve my SEO, keywords in this blog.
Yep.
And it'll tell you, and it'll be probably better, than what you could have done on your own research. And then you can start incorporating those things. I'm not saying it's going to write it for you. Maybe at some point it will. I don't know. But then you can also say, because it said as part of your SEO will be better if you have pictures. So then you can ask the AI, hey, I'm not any good at drawing. Make me a picture that's, good for, and it'll just put something out there for it. So that's how you're going to be able to make yourself better as a content marketer with the AI, rather than having it supplant you as, an employee in a corporation. Like people always say, I'm just a cog in the machine kind of thing. Well, don't be. Like, figure out how to make yourself more valuable. And you can do that a lot easier now if you're not that talented in some other ways. With AI, because the AI has all kinds of talent that you can get. And you know what? Sometimes it's good enough. And again, that person that hired you, who thinks you're some kind of wizard anyway, is now going to think you're some kind of Superman because you can do this stuff that they didn't even know. So that would be how I would look at AI. I will say, though, that we at Blue Mantis, we do use a bit of AI avatars in our internal trainings that we do for cybersecurity and other sort of sales enablement, and it's really pretty good. But it's also unsettling when it doesn't work right, when it says something really strange, and there's kind of no way around it right now. But again, at some point, it will get better, and that's what people need to be aware of. And don't be afraid of it. Like, it's just going to happen. You might as well kind of embrace it.
Embrace it. I try to look at it in a positive light. Is we all have so much creativity and genius within us, but sometimes starting anything with a blank canvas is the reason that never gets out. And so if you have ChatGPT to begin that process, you're essentially going to be able to take more of that creativity, get it on the outside, do it with more throughput. And this is not a space that is lacking in education today. I think there's overcomplication in cybersecurity, but there is so much education to be had. If people were more educated, they would have better security preparedness, number one.
Yes.
Right? And they would be more aware of all of the solutions they need. There's no, one size fits all solution. There's no single pane of glass, as they call it. So I think more education getting out there is going to happen as ChatGPT continues to grow. And you kind of gave me an idea. I was like, we should have at the end of our segments, like, what is one good prompt you would recommend, for people in cybersecurity marketing? And as you were talking through that was a really great idea. The strategy that we've used for clients that's worked really well, that kind of is a blend of writing, SEO, and video, is go and look at your top 10 performing blogs this year, the last 6 months. Those topics and titles have been essentially battle tested and validated by the market. Take that blog and feed it into ChatGPT and say, create a 3 to 5 minute video script with a good hook that is not fear-mongering, but is sensational enough. Break it up into 3 segments and then have a call to action, and then give that script to a thought leader, someone comfortable on camera. record it from your phone or laptop. I challenge you to do that and put that video on LinkedIn and boost it for a few $100s. And you're going to get more engagement than you sponsoring a Formula One car at Monaco.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is because we did that with a really big brand that was sponsoring cars in Monaco. And they ended up going down the path of going from written content with blogs, recommunicating the same information that's been validated through SMEs, and it took off. And so that's a fun little hack to get your feet wet and get started with all of the things that we're talking about here. Content, video, AI, right? Kind of wrap it all up there.
I think that's great. I'm glad you told that story, because that's something that I think is a real world sort of example of how you can do this and get value out of it. Because again, AI, it's going to cause some people to lose their jobs, but it's also a huge value creator for most people. I think that's, one of the things I just thought about too was that you're talking about SMEs and recording a script. I remember, I'm not going to get into the details of this, but like we had a SME that was in cybersecurity and was trying to read a script, and it was like a hostage video. Like, I felt sorry for the guy. We finally just scrapped it.
Not blinking at all. Dark room.
It was just terrible. And he looked up and said, and this was probably like, it's before all the pandemic panic stuff. So it's probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And he said, at some point there will just be an AI version of me that will read this, and he'll be really good at it.
Oh no. Synesthesia, right? That platform, they have the AI avatars until they get some of the like dead eye looks, and then it's almost like a kung fu movie where the voice and then this, and you're like, that is the opposite of authentic, right? This is a mannequin. That's a mannequin I'm going on a date with now. That's not good. So I mean, so Scott, as we wrap up, what final thoughts do you have that you want to leave our listeners with, especially those who want to get into, let's say, product marketing?
My road to the product marketing role that I'm in right now is not straight. It's very much of a winding road. So I would say you don't have to have a degree. You can see back here, this degree I have is from a third-rate state school, and it's just a stupid Bachelor of Arts degree. It's completely worthless. So don't feel like you have to have a Harvard degree or something like that. It's more like just getting in there and doing it. Get a low-level job and kind of work your way up. I really don't think that there's I can't think of a good marketing school, like, maybe business schools would really prepare you for that. But really, in a lot of ways, all that's doing is getting you a network of people who will, other people with family money who will eventually start a business, and then you can go work for them because they liked you. They were in your class. That's almost kind of all college is. I think in a lot of ways, just, go out there, kind of be a go-getter, get your job, do things. Figure out what you like to do. Like, if you know that you're already kind of good at this, that you can, talk to somebody and kind of tell them, ways that are, that this particular product is beneficial to them. But you don't want to carry the bag, as the saying goes, and be a salesperson where you have a quota and you're stressed out all the time. Do marketing, because I think that'll actually help you when it comes to sales enablement and being able to put yourself in the shoes or the mind of that salesperson, because you're really there to help them sell more than anything. So I think, again, if there's anything you can do to be a marketer, it's just use that kind of marketing mind and just kind of work your way up. You're not going to be director of product marketing first job out, and if you are, good for you. I'm glad, great. But you'll get there eventually. Maybe you'll be a VP. Maybe you'll be a CMO. I mean, my CMO, she's great. So just plug away at it.
Yeah. And for anyone who is, looking to kind of deepen their understanding of cybersecurity marketing or product marketing, or perhaps voice acting, where can they find you, Scott, for see some of your work or connect with you online? What's the best place?
LinkedIn, I think, is really my only social media. I'm not on anything else. Like I said, I don't have TikTok. I know what it is, but I don't have it. That's probably because I have a Chinese wife, and she's like, "Hey, that's like Chinese spyware, right?" It's like, yeah. But
That's what
no,
they say.
but my LinkedIn is the real Scott McCollum, and that's McCollum. Love to connect with you if you're watching or listening to this. Sure, I'm a nice guy usually.
Yeah. Scott, and there's a lot more to Scott too. I mean, he's a really funny guy off the camera too. We just got to be careful what we say on video. But yeah, that's what I've enjoyed about, staying in touch with you over the years. I'm like, it never feels stuffy. It feels very B2H, right?
Good.
That said, Scott, thanks for joining us on our episode. Thank you everyone else for joining us on this episode with Scott McCollum. Do me a favor, leave a comment below to let us know what you learned or any insights you found interesting. And share this with a colleague if you found it valuable. And also be sure to subscribe to our show to keep connected and get notified of more information that could help your career and your company. See you in the next episode.